Welcome back. Something that's come up in several of my games recently is that I don't have a prepared response to the Sicilian Defense. Since I switched to the e4 opening as white a few months ago, I have faced the Sicilian Defense several times, which is c5 by black, but I've just been playing knight to f3 and then sometimes c3 and then going from there, but several of you in the comments have recommended the Grand Prix Attack. So I'm going to take a look at that. I'm here on the analysis board on Lee Chess with the opening of the Sicilian Defense here. I've played e4, black has played c5. Now, according to Wikipedia, the Grand Prix Attack is if I play f4 now, although it does say that later people started playing knight to c3 first before f4, but I don't know what difference it makes, and I'm going to try to figure it out. So if I play f4 now, it is not one of the common second moves for white. There's knight to f3, there's knight to c3, there's c3 and d3, and that's the vast majority of games in the Masters database. Looks like something like 75–80% of them play knight to f3 first, and a huge chunk of the rest of them are knight to c3 and c3. Once you get to d3, you're getting pretty low in the database. Then there's b3, d4, knight to e2, f4 is way down there, and it's at 0% in the Masters database, with only 2,000 games played out of 526,000. What about the Lee Chess Players database? By the way, I am just doing this for me, as I do on most of my videos. Every now and then I'll share something with you that I've learned and say, hey, I've learned this, maybe it can help you too. But most of the time what I'm doing here is trying to get better at chess. I just happen to turn on the camera since I'm using the computer anyway. But I do hope you get something out of this. If you haven't tried the Grand Prix Attack, maybe it's worth looking into. But we're going to dig into it a little bit today, and I really know nothing about it other than a couple of you suggested it to me in the comments. But anyway, in the Lee Chess Players database, I don't remember what my settings are. It looks like I have most things selected here. Rapid, classical. You know what? Let's go ahead and add blitz and correspondence in there too. Why not? Again, the most common move here is knight to f3, but it's not nearly as high a percentage in the Players database as it is in the Masters database. It's only 55%. And bishop to c4 is the second most common move by white here on move 2. Then there's knight to c3 and d4. c3 and f4 is a little bit more common here than it is among Masters, 5%. And the win-loss percentage is 48% for white, 49% for black. I mean, pretty close. What was the win-loss percentage in the Masters database for f4? Okay, on this one you can't quite see it behind my camera view, but white only wins 28% of the games. Black wins 34%, and 38% of them draw. Well, let's say I do play f4 on move 2. Stockfish says it's basically even if you play f4 here, and black has several choices. They have d5, e6, g6 are the top 3 listed here by Stockfish, but those are not the same top 3 that are played in the Masters database. d5 is one of them, and e6 is one, but g6 is not. Knight to c6 is in there. g6 is the 4th most common. Okay, what about the players? Is it knight to c6, d6, and e6? Okay, so the g6 is not in there, but d5 is not. That was the #1 move listed in Stockfish and in the Masters database, but on the Lee Chess Players database, d5 is not listed. Knight to c6, which a lot of players, I assume, especially in Blitz and Rapid, are pre-moving the first couple of moves. So if I were to play the Grand Prix Attack, maybe I could expect knight to c6 here. It does look like it's nearly half of games. The other times you're going to see d6 and e6. When I'm looking at the opening book trying to determine what to expect from my opponents, I definitely switch back and forth between the Masters and the Players database. The reason I look at the Masters database is to see what some of the best players in the world ever have played in response to certain things. But the other is because very often those are the best responses. And I look in the Players database because that's what I'm most likely to face. And if I am going to try this against a Sicilian, I'm definitely going to want to see what to expect in both cases. It looks like, according to Stockfish, if they play e6 or g6 or one of those, I can just play knight to f3 after that. But if they play d5, which is the most common one in the Masters database and the top move recommended by Stockfish, then my next move should be to check. And they'll probably block with the bishop, and then I'll take it. And of course they would have to take back at that point, but then what would I do? Then I would just play d3 to defend that pawn because they would be attacking that pawn. Okay, but I wouldn't take... I guess not. Okay. So let's say that my opponent does play d5. Now it says my best move is to take. Did I read that wrong? Let's back up. Yeah, here it says if black plays d5, I'll probably play bishop to b5 check. But once I actually put d5 on the board, it says the bishop checking move is a little less good than the other two, and in fact, black has a very slight advantage here. I know not to trust Stockfish precise evaluations in the opening. We've gone through this before. If there's a difference of a percentage of a point, 0.2 versus 0.1, that sort of thing, we don't ignore it. But usually the moves listed at the top are the best moves. So, I mean, in a sense, those are all about the same. But I am curious as to why it lists this as the top move, but if you back up one, it'll say this is probably what you would play. What does in the Masters database here, almost everybody takes the pawn, and nobody plays the bishop to, okay, it's only 3% of Masters play the bishop to b5 check here. What about Lichess? Okay, a lot of people push past. Almost half of people just play e5 here, and about a third take, and everybody else does something else. 9% of people play knight to f3 here, which I think would just result in losing that e-pawn, right? If I played that, yeah, black just takes that pawn. Okay, I would expect that. But let's say black plays here, and I take the pawn. Now what? Are they going to take back? They can, but their best move is just to play knight to f6. Is that what I should expect? No, I should expect 67%, 2/3 of people to take back, and only 1/3 to play knight to f6. Okay, so they're going to take back. Well, now I can't develop this bishop because, at least I probably shouldn't, but it says knight to f3 is fine here. It's not the most played move by white. Knight to c3 is because of the queen. Okay, I admit I would fall into that trap, and if I didn't look at these lines and we got this far, I would be very tempted to play here. Anytime the queen comes up to get a pawn here, like in the Scandinavian, when you take that pawn, they put the queen there. Of course, you play knight to c3, but then the queen just moves. And in this case, it might just move here and check. And then I would have to block with this bishop, and then they continue developing. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to immediately attack the queen unless you don't know what else to do. But here, I can tell that this should be fine. For one thing, it keeps the queen from seeing this pawn, so I can move the bishop now if I'm ready to castle. The top two moves listed by Stockfish are also the top two moves that I should expect according to the player's database, and those are bishop to g4, which pins the knight, and knight to c6, which is just a normal developing move. Looks like knight to f6 is the third, whichever way you go. Okay, well, let's say a lot of people at my level, when they see a knight here, they immediately try to pin it to the queen, and in that case, interesting. By far, the top move by white here in the player's database is to put the bishop there, not only preparing to castle, but an extra layer of defense on the knight. And very few people play the next move, which is the top move by Stockfish, which is just to go ahead and attack the queen now. But then they might take here. Okay, and if they take there, then do I just take it, or do I take their queen? Oh, I take their queen. Okay, and then they're not going to do that. They're going to take my queen, right? That's their only move that maintains anything close to equality. And do I take it, or do I check here? No, if I check here, that gives black an advantage. But that's what most often is played by white here, is knight to c7 check, according to the player's database. I wonder about masters. No masters ever got to this point. Okay, going back to the Lichess player's database. Yep, most 3/4 of white players here on Lichess play that now. But the best move, that's the third best move. Only two moves maintain an advantage for white here. One is to take the bishop, and the other is to check. If I check, they're just going to block. And then I take the bishop. Yeah, okay, so I take the bishop, and I'm just up nearly +1 here. We're not going to get that far, probably. We're down to a very few games. I was just curious as to how that would play out. But so let's say they don't take, but I did play this. What's their best move? And what can I expect? Queen to d8 is the most common in the database, and that's the second most common. But we already found out if they take that, I'm going to be okay. Even moving my king, not being able to castle. I know that I'll be okay. Okay. But their best move is to drop back or to check. There's a lot of moves that have really similar evaluations there, or to take. I don't know that I would survive this type of position. I think whoever recommended this opening to me might not realize how I play. I tend to not like situations where my opponent has 3 moves that are all about good, about the same good for them. But then no matter which one of those they play, I have only one move and I have to know it. I like positions where I have choices and options, but this definitely looks like one of those that's very dicey. And again, I'm going to end up breaking opening principles here if we do that trade that we were talking about, which looks like is very common. But queen to d8 is the most common. And then checking. Okay, see here I have several choices. Okay, I do like that. I can try to kick the bishop out, which I admit I usually forget to do. When the bishop is there, I usually just try to get my queen out of the pen at some point, but I usually forget to play h3. I'm not sure I like this because wouldn't I want my bishop to be able to interpose here at some point? That's not listed. How bad would that be? That would take away, I mean, we would still be around 0, so I should be okay. So if I played conservatively here, the kind of chess that I tend to play, I should be all right. And now I'm prepared to castle, in which case my rook would be behind this knight. And I'm a little bit more developed than black. Black certainly is not ready to castle over here because they have so many pieces still in the way. Okay, well, maybe I'll give this a shot. Let's back up a little bit more. What if I do play e5? What if I forget that I'm supposed to take this and I just push past? Okay, that does give black an advantage, and it's because of knight to c6. Okay, I assume that's what they would play. That was the top move and the top move in the database. And my best move is to go pin it. Okay, so let's say I did that, and let's say they play their best move, which is the most common, and then I'm going to take. Okay, and they're going to take. They maintain a very slight advantage if they take with the bishop. And then it says I would play d4 and they wouldn't take it, but knight to f3 also keeps us around there, and d3, but d4? Really? Okay, let's say I play d4 and they don't take it. It's the second most common move for them to take it, but they might just play e6. And then I play c3, and then it almost looks like we're in a Caro-Kann, except I've played f4 and they've put their bishop here, because this structure looks similar to an advanced version of the Caro-Kann. But now it is their best move again to take here. I don't really like this position, but if they take, I assume I would take back, and now they can check over here, but they're not going to. Oh, they might. It's almost a third of people are going to check there, and the rest are going to get this knight out. I'm curious as to how that breaks down by rating, the people around my rating range, what they would play. But we got a little far out there. Yeah, I think this is going to be the problem for me in the Grand Prix Attack here, is that I'm not following opening principles very much by playing this. Sorry, it's my turn, but if I take here, then we've already broken open the center, and I don't have any pieces out yet. So maybe I need to think of something different, but, well, let's just say I play d3. That does block in my light squared bishop. Yeah, black's already gaining a very slight advantage there. I'm trying to ignore it, but okay, so they get the knight out now. Oh, now we're even. Okay, yeah, Stockfish is definitely unreliable in the openings. Bishop to e2 or knight to f3. I don't like knight to f3 because they can immediately take here and attack the knight. And if I take back, then they can trade queens and I lose the right to castle immediately. That's not what it says would happen, but I know the people I play. Yeah, watch this. D-pawn captures e4, even though that's not one of the top two here. It's definitely what they would play. And it would be my best move to take back, and then they're going to take here, and I'm going to lose the right to castle. Stockfish says we're even, but I mean, maybe now that I've just learned the opening principles and kind of got to where I'm playing them automatically, maybe now it's time to chuck them. Maybe that's just for beginners, and if you learn exceptions to them, then it should be okay. That's something else that I might be learning here in this session. It just looks like in each one of these positions, my opponent has 3 or 4 moves that Stockfish says is fine for them, and in the database, there's 3 or 4 moves that are fine for my opponent that opponents typically play in those situations and have a decent winning percentage. Again, you can't see the winning percentages here, but just in this example position that I came up with after what we're on move 6, the top move here in the database is bishop to g4, and black wins more than half the time. The next move is knight to f6, and black wins more than half the time. The next move is e6 in the player's database, and black wins more than half the time. What's the next most common move? g6, and black wins more than half the time. Those aren't good odds. I mean, I could take this, I could change the settings of the database and get it more toward players in my rating range. Let's take off the really high rated players here. I'm not going to face anybody rated 2000. And let's take off daily and classical. We're just doing rapid and blitz now and see if it's the same. Those still are the top 3 moves. And the winning percentages for black went up for these two and went down slightly for this one. But still, more than half the time, black wins. After spending this kind of time on it, I don't want to reject it just out of hand, especially not having played it. I'm pretty sure I've never played f4 on the second move of the Sicilian Defense when I'm playing with white pieces. So it's probably worth a try. Because again, I've been complaining in recent games when my opponent, and I had 2 bots in my last video, 2 bots in a row played the Sicilian Defense, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? I don't know. So I might as well try this. We saw how far down it was in the database. Backing up to here, it was the 5th most common move in the player's database. So somebody who plays the Sicilian regularly And I assume anyone who's been on these sites for very long kind of develops an automatic response to each opening by white. Just like me, I automatically play the Caro-Kann defense now. Used to, I would play something different every time just trying to see what worked, and I eventually settled on the Caro-Kann defense. And I figure that's the same is true for someone who plays the Sicilian defense. They've put a little bit into it. And just like me, right here, trying to figure out all the possibilities for the opponent, they've done that too. And I don't know if they just stuck with the top 3, but F4 is not in the top 3 listed by Stockfish, and it's not in the top 4 listed in the player's database. So it's possible they haven't looked into it that much. It's possible that, a bunch of my opponents aren't going to know that D5 is the best next move. It could throw some people off. And if I become more familiar with this, it's possible that it could be a weapon for me. But we did see in the Wikipedia page that I looked at briefly that it said nowadays a lot of masters who still play F4 will save it for the third move. On the second move, they'll play knight to C3, which is slightly more common. So the black player will be expecting this. And then knight to C6 is the most common move in the player's database here. Oh, again, I have changed it to be just my rating range, but we also see D6, we see E6. A6 is the top move listed by Stockfish, surprisingly enough. But let's say they play this one, which I have seen back. I think I've played this a few times, although I've been doing knight to F3 more often lately. And then F4 is that, oh, that's the second most popular move here. But white wins most of the games in the player's database. What about in the masters? Let's switch back over there. F4 is the third most common here, but black wins most of those. Not most, but more than white does. In the masters database, the drawing percentage is much larger and wider, whereas in the player's database, their drawing percentage is always very narrow with blocks for wins and losses. But we're not playing masters, we're playing Lichess players and obviously chess.com players in some cases. So let's say I play F4 now. Now D5 is not their best move, according to Stockfish. Okay, and the top 3 in the player's database are the same as the top 3 listed by the engine. That's interesting. D6, E6, and G6, and they all keep us pretty close to 0. And I, playing with the white pieces, would do best against D6. According to the database here, D6, white has a 52% winning chance. They're even with the other 2 moves, 48 to 48, with a small percentage of drawing. Okay, so maybe that's what I can do then. Maybe I can play this Grand Prix Attack delayed after playing knight to C3. Let's back up though. What if they don't play knight to C6 here? What if they do D6? Can I still play F4? It looks like some of us do. And white does well with it again here. What about masters? Do masters? Oh, F4 is the top move in this position in the masters database, and white has a slightly better winning chance than black. 37% of masters in this position, according to this database, play F4 here. Well, you know what? I have just enough time, I think, to go over to, I don't know how to do it here on Lichess. I don't think, wait, do I? It says practice with computer. Okay, it's the same icon, very similar icon as on the other site, but I don't know how to pick like a level of bot here that I'm going to do well against. If I pick 3, it's too easy, and if I pick 4, it's too hard. So I'm going to switch over to chess.com really quick. Bear with me. Okay, I have put the custom position in here. I didn't play that move, the bot just did. But anyway, I've selected Aziz, who is an 1100 rated bot. I should be able to beat this bot under normal circumstances. But let's play F4 here and see how well I do if I can figure this out. He brought out his other knight. I don't remember that being... Was that in the database? Okay, that's attacking this pawn, but that pawn's already protected, so should I just play knight to F3 now? I don't know, let's try that. Oh, now they played D5. Okay, now should I take it? Because it's a different situation than when we just had those 4 pawns out there. Over there, when we just had the 4 pawns out, it was my best move to take it. I remember that. But I don't know if it is my best move to take it here, or if I should push forward and challenge the knight right away. I'm gonna push forward. Oh, the knight jumped in. Well, if I take it, that pawn comes here, and then I have to move my knight. And I don't know where to put it. What if I just leave that there and go pin their knight? Whoa, they've pinned my knight. Let's castle. Whoop. What? Now my bishop can't get back now. What is going on? And now if I take that knight and they take with the pawn, I can't get this knight out of danger because it's... But I can get my queen out of the pin. What if I move the queen this way and then take this knight? Now when the pawn comes, I can take back with my queen. I think. Oh, they've come after the bishop. Let's take that and then check and take the rook. That happened kind of fast, but it worked out pretty okay, I think. Can I take this pawn too? Or do I have something better? I can move this knight now, but I don't really have anywhere to move it to. I also would like to get this bishop out. Let's get off the back rank. Oh, they've come forward. What are they aiming at? Oh, they were protecting this pawn. Okay. That seemed like a sensible move. I could check and then slide over here and keep that pawn from moving forward, maybe? Or no, I'll check, then see what they do about it. Oh no, when they move out of check, the bishop will be hitting my queen, so that may not be the best. What if I check here and aim to come back this way? I just don't want to get my queen trapped down there. Okay, I can come back this way if I need to, but what I want to do right now is get this bishop out. And I think the way that I'm going to do that is by moving my b pawn. If they take, I'll take here, and then my rook and bishop will be free. Let's see what they do. They didn't. They moved their bishop. Okay. I'm way up on material, so should I threaten a queen trade right here? My knight's guarding that spot. Or you know what? I should check again and then just take this pawn. Let's do that. Oop, they left their queen there. Okay, I'll just take it. That's a check. They have to take back. I know this pawn is under threat, but I'm going to protect it by doing this. Now I can get this bishop out to, I'm not sure where, but let's just say here, where it is defended. And now my rooks are free. Let's go after their light squared bishop. Oh, they pinned that. That was smart. And that bot did that fast. Good job. What if I unpinned it? If I move the king, they just take it. So I need to protect it with a pawn. No, that unprotects this. I can protect it with the bishop. Hopefully that's okay. Oh, they took it anyway. All right. Wow. I have some opponents that play that fast. And yeah, that pawn's under threat. Okay. I'm going to choose to not worry about it that much. But I don't know why I couldn't put a rook here and then start moving that at some point. Or, you know what? I could start moving these. Like so. Yeah. And then let's go here, protecting this pawn because I want to move this one like so. Oh, they're going to let me go past. I'm going to go past. Then I'm going to attack the rook, and then I'm going to keep moving that pawn, and then I'm going to move that pawn. That is easily defended. Then I'm going to go here and take the rook. All right. I was not seeing everything I was thinking, but I was trying to keep my rooks off of those squares while trying to defend this and this all at the same time while keeping that defended. It was a lot to think about, so my mouth might have slowed down just a little bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and promote here with check. My own pawns are in the way of my rooks, so it's going to be nice to have a queen down here to help out with that. Okay. I know the bot made some mistakes, but I don't know where they happened, and this doesn't have a game review like as if I had actually played the bot. And I did change the settings so the eval bar and everything wasn't on there. To go back to the beginning, we started here. Sorry, this is the position I put on the analysis board, and as soon as I brought the bot up, it played that. And then I played F4, and that's what we played out here. And I think I did okay just trying to notice what they were attacking, which pieces of mine were unprotected or were about to be. So I think I might try this. So thank you, whoever it was that suggested this. I might roll it out in a blitz game or a series of blitz games first, or I might not face the Sicilian again for 2 weeks. That happens. That happened back when I was looking at the 4 Knights Scotch variation. I looked at several ideas and several responses, and then I couldn't get anyone to play the 4 Knights for weeks. And I finally got one the other day. So that might happen here. I might not face the Sicilian for a week or two. And by then I might forget, especially if it's in a blitz game. I might go, oh, the whatever, and I'll just play knight to f3. I don't know. But I will try to remember to play knight to c3, which leaves me open to play f4 on the 3rd move. Hopefully some of you got something out of this. And either way, thank you for spending your time here. And I'll see you next time.